We are off. Welcome to the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast. We have Bryden and Nathan here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Go ahead. I have to say before we get into it that I feel like we've set a record now on the podcast for the earliest ever podcast. I'll give the listeners a peek under the tent. It is 6:20 a.m.
There you go.
But this is just the world we live in, right?
Information morning can do it. We can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Not for me.
I want to say, and I mean this sincerely, having just met and having just traded a few emails before this morning, I'm a firm believer that the most valuable thing that we all have is time. So I want to say sincerely thank you for donating yours to me and the listeners in the podcast. If it wasn't for you guys doing this, it would just be me sitting here talking to myself, which no one wants to hear really all that much. Okay. So before I dive in with my inquisition and finding out more about who you are and what you do, why don't you tell me who you are, what you do, help listeners understand and myself understand who you are, what you do, why you do what you do, and most importantly, where we are.
All right. So I guess the Reader's Digest version of it is without getting into a Dr. Phil episode. I grew up in Cape Breton, went to Ashby Elementary School.
Shout out Ashby.
Yeah, that was the first group at Sherwood Park Education Center. So there's a few of us still here in Sydney that were lucky enough to do that. Graduated from Sydney Academy in 2002. Very quickly moved to New Brunswick, went to St. Thomas, graduated in 2006, was home for a year, moved to Asia for 8.5 years, and then made the decision to move back home in 2015.
Okay.
So we moved here in November of 2015.
And what was, Nathan, can you jump in here? What was that like for you? Was it a big sales pitch that Bryden had to do to convince you to come to, when he said Cape Breton, did you say, sorry, where?
Well, no.
I used to live in Australia, in Sydney.
Oh, okay. So when he said Sydney.
But he always reminded me, Xinyan. Oh, my name is Korean Xinyan.
Yeah.
He always reminded me, Xinyan, it's the same name. It's just same name.
Yeah.
It's totally different city.
Yeah.
Just make sure. Yeah.
I just told him that it was basically the same thing. Our airport was just a bit smaller. So,
which is pretty accurate.
Yeah, I mean,
and maybe the accents are a bit different. But other than that,
same.
Other than that, it's pretty similar.
Opera House, the Savoy, it's same. We met in 2010, and Nathan had already made plans to move to Australia. So whatever had happened in those moments, we were both kind of like, okay, let's just see what's going to happen. We don't know. Right. And I was going traveling for a few months. So both of us were going to be displaced for a while anyway. So when we started traveling, and then I went back to Korea. He was in Australia. Then he came back to Korea. He had sort of made the decision that he wanted to move abroad again. Okay. So I was in a situation where I was very fortunate that my company was just sort of renewing my contract yearly. And they would just come to me and say, hey, listen, are you going to stay or are you going to go home? Mm-hmm. And at the time, Korea makes it very easy for you to stay, but my family was making it more difficult to stay because my niece and nephew were getting older. My parents were here. Everyone was here. And he was on sort of a time crunch because there was a rule that he had to leave. He had to come to Canada before he was 31, basically, on the visa that he had at the time. Yeah. So like this podcast, we decided to dive right in. Mm-hmm. We were fortunate enough to have some places to stay when we got home, and then we just quickly moved through the motions ourselves. So it wasn't a big sales pitch to come back, but it was a sales pitch to stay.
Yeah, I bet. Once you're here.
Because if anybody who knows anybody, Korean people love to eat, and there are very few Korean restaurants on Cape Breton Island. Yeah. So that was our big thing, was we were going to miss all the food that we had become accustomed to eating every single day.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that you try to, and this is just me assuming, do you try and push the envelope a bit here and introduce people to some Korean flavors? We're getting kind of ahead of ourselves, but I think it's someone like yourself who's coming from the area, like you grew up with these flavors. Is there an opportunity for you and for you both to kind of be the ones that show people that it doesn't always have to be, for example, fish and chips and lobster rolls. And I know we're not doing that here, but you get what I'm saying.
Well, first time I came here, like no international cuisine restaurants too much here. Just only
Yeah.
Canadian Chinese restaurant.
Yeah.
Not many for Asian cuisines. So basically, I want to try make my Korean restaurant here because I want to
okay.
eat myself.
Oh, so okay, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's funny you should ask about that because during the winter we had gotten very fortunate to meet the Cape Breton Farmers Market. And quite a few of the people that were involved with that, specifically Pauline, actually. And Pauline has become a very knowledgeable local resource that we tap into daily. I think I call her for everything. And what was great was during the winter, things ramped down in Cape Breton. And I mean, even this year, I mean, it feels later than it really is because there's no one here, but the temperatures are starting to drop. And as you know, in Cape Breton, we're used to people being here. There's a lot of Europeans,
a lot of tourists.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they weren't this year. And I mean, I think we had more people in general in Cape Breton, but it was definitely our Atlantic bubble friends that were hanging out. But we had gotten into the market and started selling Korean food, actually.
Oh, okay.
So when I say we, I mean Nathan. I was there. I was there.
Moral support.
Yeah, I was there to help. I think accessibility is incredibly important. And I don't mean accessibility and being able to get in the door. I think being able to access what the food actually is.
Oh, for sure.
And I think for me, I never changed. When I moved to Korea, I'm from Cape Breton. When they dropped me off, it was exactly what you would imagine dropping someone out from
Cape Breton to
and just saying, here you go.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Survive.
In 2007, where the resources in Korea were a lot less than what they are now. But when I learned about the food and I learned what it was, I realized, okay, well, the flavors are not crazy. The description might be, but that's just in the translation.
Right.
So we were Nathan's created a little bit of a Korean following for himself in Cape Breton, where he's started to prepare Korean food that we've sold in the market.
Okay.
But COVID-19 helped us to kind of get our focus back because we had time to sort of sit down and brainstorm.
What are we doing?
Yeah. So we renovated our basement to a prep kitchen for him.
Okay. This is the basement you live in?
Right here.
Oh, here. Okay, where we are now.
Oh, yeah. My basement? No. The cafe basement was just free space.
Right.
So that became where he was going to start to cook.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So when the farmers market opened their retail store, Nathan was on hand, and that was the direction we're going in, is to start selling Korean food through the farmers market so that downtown has something where people who are working downtown can run into the market. They can support local. He's using and making sure that he's cutting down on food waste by using product that isn't sold or left over in the store.
Oh,
and then
awesome.
he takes and turns into Korean food.
That's amazing. Good for you.
Thanks.
So you guys are doing this, which
Getting there.
Yeah.
So you're doing this and this, this and that. So we are sitting right now in the Gaslight Cafe. How did Gaslight Cafe come to be?
Gaslight Cafe was actually a conversation that was had when I was working at Starbucks.
Okay.
I had a customer that came in faithfully whenever he was here, and all these conversations were constantly being had about, I'm opening my own coffee shop, In Starbucks, you kind of you have a lot of conversations every single day, and although every single conversation is genuine, you don't genuinely remember or take seriously some of the things that might be said in those conversations.
Right. It's like, okay, yeah.
It's like being a bartender without the alcohol.
Right.
So, and people are incredibly honest over coffee. It's very interesting how honest people are.
Yeah, that relationship is intriguing, isn't it? That
Very
dynamic.
much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. And so he kind of kept repeating it, and I had no interest in, uprooting myself and running away and say, yeah, I'm gonna take this great, this sounds great. This random dude came to Starbucks and offered me a place to, and Singhan's like, yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
No. I was teaching at CBU at the time, and I was at the university here, and I was working basically full-time at Starbucks, so I'm good.
Yeah.
And then more and more, I think his plans started to fall apart, and he realized very quickly that he wasn't going to be able to do what he actually wanted to do. So when I came in, Gaslight had already been named, but that was basically what it was. It was a name,
Okay.
and then nothing else. So I took the name, and I thought about it, and I was like, I could change it. But then I thought it's always fun to kind of take things that are overtly negative in the most, like, this word we see every single day,
Yeah.
gaslight.
Yeah.
You're being gaslit.
Yes.
But then if you spin that and you think about it in a positive way, you're like, yeah, but we gaslight people because we get them going. So
Yeah.
whether that be with something funny in the morning, whether that be with coffee or tea or something else,
Or pie.
or food,
Yeah.
we get them going.
Yeah.
And the Dixie Chicks can do it. I'm sorry, the Chicks.
Yes, they've
can do
changed.
it.
Yeah, I just learned that.
So I think I can do that. Yeah, they've changed their name. They're no longer the Dixie Chicks. There's a negative connotation associated with the word Dixie.
We what's funny is I thought when I saw that, I thought Chicks was kind of a bit negative
that's
as
what
well.
I
So I was
thought.
very intrigued by why they stuck with Chicks.
Okay, we're keeping the Chicks, but we're not keeping the Dixie.
Because I feel like women. This is obviously a general statement, and this is not the pool I should be swimming in. But I will quickly is that I feel like if you call a lady or a woman a chick now, it's like a bit derogatory.
Oh.
Well, yeah, I think because it's quite comfortable, isn't it? I mean, you're
Yeah.
kind of assuming that
Yes.
you can be comfortable with that person. and
Like, hey
dress-
babe, hey
Yeah,
chick.
Yeah.
It's like, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Dixie Chicks, now just chicks. They are subscribers to the podcast, so they're
That's
listening.
amazing.
So we can
I have
say
a cafe called Gaslight, so
come
I
and do a
think-
performance. Come and
Right.
do a pop-up show.
And now, I mean, if we do merch and we do official Gaslighters,
Oh, okay, there you go.
that's the next project.
So for you, what has been? Sorry. So how long has this been the thing?
We opened the Gaslight here in 2018,
Okay.
November of 2018.
So we're coming up on 2 years.
Yeah, it originally started in Lewisburg. So
Oh, okay.
Our very first location was in a big old building, and we took the front of that and turned it into a cafe. And then Nathan came on board quite a bit after that and sort of introduced some small food and cafe sandwiches and things like that. Our first year was basically just, okay, we're going to do this now. and
Okay.
kind of hope for the best.
Yeah.
Year two was a little bit more
Structured.
absolutely. And then just through positives and negatives and hardships and
Easy
celebrations.
ships.
Yeah, we made some pretty big decisions that led us to just focusing on this one. So the decisions, whether they be difficult or easy, they were necessary. And I think, especially in this climate, being decisive, it has been quite an asset, because you just don't know what you just don't know what they're going to say. You don't know what people are going to do. You don't know.
Yeah.
For me personally, living in Asia, hospital masks were just something that were always in the back of my mind, because you would see people wearing hospital masks. That's it, hospital mask. Here, it's not a normal part of our society, and it's not a normal view we have of each other to walk around with everyone wearing masks. The reference points for that are Mad Max, zombies,
Right.
that's where my mind goes. So you see everybody running around with face masks on. It can be a little bit just sort of off-putting, because you're like, oh my gosh, that's happening here now.
Yeah.
That's like
It's come here.
Cape Breton.
Yeah.
Of all places, nothing happens here.
Yeah.
But we got coronavirus here.
Yeah.
So I kind of agree with a lot of the people that come in every single day for us and say the same thing that we say, is that we have COVID-19. We just don't have the pandemic. We don't
Yeah.
have the sheer panic of
Yeah.
it, because our numbers are controllable. But being in Cape Breton and being here and having the uncertainties that we have, I think being decisive and making the decisions that we made this year have set us up for what I think should be a pretty good winter.
Yeah.
I think.
And I yeah,
hope.
exactly. Yeah, we'll see.
I think.
For me, and coming here to Cape Breton and facilitating these conversations, I really didn't want for it to be all about COVID-19.
Yeah.
I think it's important for us to like timestamp this podcast a bit and say like, this is the reality right now. But I also am really intrigued to facilitate conversations about going down the path of, okay, this is the current reality. What is this going? How are we going to come out of this stronger as an industry or as an individual business, as an operators? Excuse me. And what I think, I do consulting for this industry, and what I've been working on my clients with as we move through this is how do we look at where we were vulnerable as an industry and patch that up as we move forward?
Service.
Yeah.
150,000% customer service.
Yeah, always. And a lot of people have gotten away from that and have gotten too relaxed and doing those things. And that for me, I think you hit the nail on the head. If that is your focus and you're able to achieve whatever your version of service is, you will be fine.
Yep.
But I also think, to your point as well about kind of the unknown, we also have to be very open to understanding how that consumer behavior will be kind of forever changing for the time being. Like you said, every day is kind of changing, and it's slowed down a bit where we don't see these monumental quantum leaps and changes and announcements, but there still are a lot of consumer behaviors that you guys and your staff and myself have to like take a step back and go, okay, what do we need to be doing to serve this consumer behavior? Because it is different than it was 6 weeks ago, than it was 10 weeks ago, than it was 3 months ago.
I actually think it comes back to the mask situation again, but it comes back in a different way. I think we were so spoiled in being able to read people's faces that we didn't read people's moods. So one of my number one crazy OCD, I will scream until the lights turn off, rules that I have is that every single human being that comes in this building before 12 o'clock, you get a good morning. If I don't hear you say good morning, I'm going to ask you, why didn't you say good morning? And I always get that clap back to like, oh,
come on, Bryden. Just like I
didn't
busy.
say good morning to one person.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, and how was that interaction for you?
Yeah.
How was that customer? And how, when the customer came in and you said good morning, how are they different? Compare them. Every single person wants to have their moment when they go in anywhere.
Yeah.
When you go into a jewelry store and you're getting married, you want one-on-one, you want
service,
the fantasy,
the touch. Yeah.
I'm spending a ton of money, or maybe not. And don't tell him.
Yeah.
But everybody, even if it's a cup of coffee, but everybody wants to have their moment, and everybody deserves to have that moment.
Heck yeah.
I'm paying to keep the lights on, but I'm paying with the money that was given to me by customers. I mean, at the end of the day, those are the people that kept us open.
Yeah.
And for me to not respect that is disrespectful.
For sure.
For me to not respect the fact that customers come in and they might be difficult, well, that just makes my job difficult. Not everybody's going to be difficult, but this situation is difficult. I never look at a customer as like the Karen, or I want to speak to a manager. I take all of that with a lot of jest.
Yeah.
I even have a face mask that says I want to speak to a manager.
How apropos.
Yeah. So I think that sometimes, and I'm going to speak from myself personally so that I'm not generalizing anything and you don't get any hate mail.
I'll just forward it to you.
I think that we've lost sight of our roles when it comes to the hospitality
service industry. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that we took a little bit of we became a little bit arrogant. And I think in a smaller town, it's very easy to become arrogant because you know that the choices are somewhat more limited. If we were in Halifax, we would obviously have to work much, much harder.
Or Toronto or Montreal or
any
Vancouver,
big city,
New York.
because you have to hustle. You have to hustle against the 20 other people that do something quite similar to maybe what you do.
Totally.
So I don't take for granted any person that walks in this cafe because they do have other choices and they've made their choice to come here. And when they come here, I want to make sure that they've made the right choice. Do I have customers that I wish I could fire? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I kind of also deal with the situation head on because I deal with customers the way that I think they should be dealt with.
Right.
And so if someone comes in and they're incredibly overbearing or they're incredibly rude or they're just being sort of unreasonable, I'll make a point to bring them back down into a reasonable space.
Like down regulate them
Absolutely.
a bit. Yeah.
Like, because I think that I'm here all day. This is my job and I want to enjoy it and I want to enjoy the space that I'm in and I want to be able to control that energy a bit. And I think that if people are bringing in a lot of negative stuff from outside, you're not contributing to the coffee shop aspect of it.
No, for sure.
So I think service for us has always been more than fit. It's almost 60-40. I'm very fortunate because I don't really have a lot of worry when it comes to the food situation because Nathan's incredibly good at what he does.
Right.
He's very, very good at his job. He's incredibly good at keeping waste, labor, cost, all those things in line, which is what we need. I'm spoiled.
So it allows you to focus on what you do.
Because I can speak.
Right.
I can speak English.
So can
Yeah, for me.
You know what's interesting as you were describing that, Bryden, I was thinking about I was thinking about challenging you, but then you really kind of came full circle for me and my interpretation of what you just shared. But it reminded me of Setting the Table by Danny Meyer. Have you read it?
I have not, but
Okay,
I will.
I'm gonna get it for you as a gift.
Oh, thank you.
It's a book I think everyone in the industry, anyone in business, should read. But Danny Meyer suggests that gone are the days of the customer is always right. While you do need to take care of your customers, that's a given. But you really need. He speaks and preaches to. You really need to make sure that your people, your staff, are the ones that are taken care of first. So when you have someone, like you said, someone come in who's overbearing or maybe too demanding or whatever it may be, you are of the mind, like, allow for me to step in there and kind of control the situation if you're here, or maybe empowering your staff to say, hey guys, like, I do want you to say hello, but if this or this happens, you have my absolute support to say, sorry, please don't speak to me that way, or there's the door, or those things. So I think for a long time, talking about the industry and the issues that we've had, a lot of us have begun to coast and not create. That's all right. We'll deal with it. It's fine. It's fine. the fridge just kicked on. It's all good. And a lot of us have been serving the customers almost too much, where we start to sacrifice our vision. We start to sacrifice what we're doing. So I hope that more people read that book, but more people understand that, like, if you're as important as our customers are, because they're literally keep the lights on, like you said, but I would then go a little bit further and say the lifeblood of our industry is our staff. Like, we need these workers, no?
Yeah.
I mean, you can see that. You can see how both are so important in so many different ways. And, obviously the customers, because you need them, but also for atmosphere. I mean, I don't know if anybody's been in a few places, but we have people in here quite often. So there's always that little buzz, which you associate with a cafe or any.
There's an energy.
Absolutely. Restaurants have lost that energy a little bit because there still is that trepidation coming from some of the guests. And that makes and in my opinion, the servers have the hardest job right now. Servers have...
Yeah, how do you influence that right now?
Like, you have to basically tell someone, okay, you have to be exactly the same way you were before, but you have to wear this face mask.
Yeah.
No one can see your mouth, so they don't know if you're being nice, saucy, or funny. You have to only use your eyes.
Yeah. Or your hands.
Yeah. And you have to keep follow all of the rules, all the directives that are being put at you, and make sure that's gluten-free.
Because it makes me gassy.
So we have, and I'm a server. I mean, I wait on people every single day, and I know you have to be so much more reassuring to those people. You have to reassure them, hey, listen, it's fine.
It's okay. Relax.
You can have your supper.
Yeah.
You can have a drink.
Just don't touch anything.
Just don't touch anything, and you're getting plastic cutlery.
It is very challenging time. It is very challenging.
And we
time.
as servers our expectations are obviously to go back to work, but to get the exact same that we were getting before. So I mean, in tips, any your customers who would give you other things. I know working at Starbucks, people used to bring you presents all the time.
Right.
I find it more difficult to connect with people, and I know that sounds. Without being able to read people's facial cues or kind of see, I can't see. I was an English teacher for 9 years in Korea, so my number one trick of teaching was to always teach something and then look at everyone and look for the deer in headlights sort of glazed over people and focus on them and make sure, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. We're good. We're good. And I knew that they would forget it 5 minutes later, but making that connection with people because I followed their facial cues. Now, good thing I introduced Nathan to America's Next Top Model on streaming. So we've gone through all 12, about 12 seasons of it.
Okay.
So we're smizing at the Gaslight now.
Right.
So that people are smiling with their eyes.
You know, it's
She's bringing it back.
I think it's really important for us to look at the challenges that we have right now. And let's be honest, this industry was challenged before COVID.
Absolutely.
It was broken before COVID.
Absolutely.
Whatever the concept is, that
Yeah.
we all needed help. But I feel like this is an opportunity for us to really look at, okay, how are we actually seeing our guests? Meaning, like, are we actually taking the time to look at how are their shoulders? How are their hands? Are they relaxed? Are they not relaxed? Whereas I feel like what you're saying, when you can read someone's mouth, it's like, I mean, if you've been in this industry for a little while, or you have that certain je ne sais quoi, you can like rip through service and make sure people have what they need. But I think there's a difference between having, like, looking at someone but actually seeing them. And this is in our professional lives, this is in our relationships, this is even with ourselves. Like, how much time are we taking to really better understand our clientele and our customers? I think this is forcing us to take that extra time and go, okay, like, what does this person need? Because we can't just look at the mouth, and even the eyes can be challenging to see. So I think this is going to really allow for those of us that want to do it in this space, is really step up our customer service game and really make our guests feel seen and heard. Because for so long you can get away with head down, how are you, good morning, and then here's your coffee, bye.
Yep.
And that may have done okay, but now I think we need to dig a little deeper and connect more. That's my thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different. If we look at the industry right now as a customer, I think that customer is quite unhappy, because that customer consistency is something that I thrive on. And if it's the same every time, you don't have to worry about it. And I think that consistency is difficult, because the industry here can be very unpredictable, but it can also, the challenge is, what am I trying to say? We've always focused on service, so it's not something new for us. Like, it's not a new concept to say, hey, you know, we should go above and beyond for that customer. We go above and beyond for every customer. And I literally mean that, because I know and I can recall situations where we went above and beyond when we didn't even need to, but we did because we wanted to.
And it was part of, like, your core values, if you will.
Absolutely. And during, probably within the last 6 months, the one word that I've heard so many times is pivot. Pivot.
Yeah.
You just
Pivot.
That means turn.
Yeah.
It's not about turning. It's not about going this way a little bit, it's about adapting to the situation. Adaptability is so important. And I think living in Korea for 8 years really helped me with that, because I have literally been the only white dude. I've been like the only person who's not Korean. I don't everyone else was Korean. I was the only one. I lived in Yeoju, South Korea, which had an outlet that could put any of these to shame. And it was so wonderful and amazing. My mother got to go. If you ever get to interview her,
shout out mom.
Shout out to mom at the outlets. And I would be the only person not Korean in this entire neighborhood. And this neighborhood is probably I'd say 30 or 40,000. So within my little compound of apartment buildings, the grocery store there, I was recognizable.
You kind of stuck out.
I was the only Waigukan. I was the only foreigner. And so when I would go in there, they always made a point to take care of me. Like, she always made sure that I bought meat, I bought this, and she would always look, the older woman who owned the store, she'd always look to make sure what I was buying, to make sure that I was
buying the right stuff.
Eating properly.
No, they just being nosy.
And being nosy.
Just being nosy is what white people eating. You know what I mean?
But she would always make sure that I was buying food to eat, that I was taking care of myself.
Yeah.
And I think there was one man who worked at my company who spoke English, and he was my only lifeline if anything bad was to happen.
Can we give him a shout out? What was his name?
SK was his name, actually.
SK.
Which I'm pretty sure was I'm pretty sure it was a Korean name and it's just his initials.
Right.
But his English was not it was doable.
It was
we
passable.
could handle it. Yeah,
Right.
we were survival English with my survival Korean. We were
You
phone
can
people off
meet
the
halfway.
island. Yeah. But I think when we talk about like, and that service, like that connection with people is, and the ability to adapt to their needs. It's not about what we need. It's about what our customer
100%.
needs. And so how can we continue to do what we're doing by not making our customers' lives more difficult? When I add up everything in the morning that people have to do to get here, if I want people to come here for coffee, I have to compete with Tim Hortons. I have to compete with Starbucks. I have to compete with The Ugly Mug. I have to compete with Dr. Luke's. I have to compete with Dylan's down at Wentworth. That's just 5 within my radius that I'm saying, hey, pick me, come here.
Vote me. Yeah.
Exactly. So how can I do that? And how can I ensure that my customer comes in and they're like, okay, I'm happy with my choice. We're putting in a drive-through. We know that a pickup window will be essential for a winter here. If you have to put on a mask, it's cold outside.
Right.
It's snowing.
You're not doing it.
I'm not getting out of the car.
Yeah.
Once I get in the car, I'm going from home to work, right back home. That's how the day is about to go.
Yeah.
And I get that. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
I get it. But I need to make their life easier. So by making their life easier, they'll know that they're making the right decision because they know that we're making decisions that benefit them ultimately.
That's awesome. Changing speeds a little bit. Let's talk about the food. Let's talk about because I was introduced to you guys via social media, and like I said off the top, Bryden and I were just trading emails back and forth to set up this podcast, and I was super intrigued by what I think is a unique a USP that you guys have, is like a unique selling point is these pies that you guys do. So tell me the story of the pies. Is this a Nathan thing? Is it something that existed before you guys took the business over, or?
It was a collaboration.
It is actually.
It was a group of, there was ourselves and we had a business partner that we had worked with, and the 3 of us had sort of were trying to come up with, this was in Lewisburg. So the pot pies actually started in Lewisburg.
Okay.
They started as a very, very rough tea biscuit dough.
An
with
open face.
With stew in the middle of it. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
It was
Not good?
It was weird. People loved it though.
People loved
They
it.
loved the filling, but they said the crust was too thick. So our big mission was to figure out how we could come up with something that was lighter.
Like real product. So actually Popeye, just I have the experience when I was in Australia.
Yeah.
So that I used to make before, and then like I thought, okay, so what can I give a different taste here?
Yeah.
So pie filling is everybody's the same, so can make the same
Yeah.
flavor. So what is different? Pastry.
Right.
So I made pastry with different more crust, different pastry with the pie filling. The combination is crunchy, smooth, like
So
the pie is actually puff pastry.
yeah.
right.
So we use a thinner, sort
Like
of
a phyllo?
flakier. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Wow,
it's
interesting.
And it's the place that Nathan's referring to. There's 2. There was one in Korea that we used to go to. It's you go out and you have a couple of drinks.
I was gonna say, you go get drunk.
4:30 in
and
the
then you-
morning, you stumble into this place. It's a New Zealand place called Jester's, which is a chain of
Okay, yeah.
hand pies.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, because I don't associate Korea and even pastry or
No.
Korea and
No.
like that kind of.
But tons of Aussies and tons of Kiwis
Whereas,
living
yeah,
in Australia
New
or
Zealand.
in Korea.
When I was a hungover, just pie was like
Yeah, that was
hungover
what-
food. There's every convenience stores in Australia has them. The
has the
pie
hand pies.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like pizza burgers.
Yeah.
yeah. Which I haven't had
Exactly
yet.
same
Pizza
things.
So
Go
Kate-
to Pizza
Kate-
Palace, open face, pizza burger.
Pizza Palace, open face,
pizza burger.
Where is Pizza Palace?
In the pier. Whitney Pier.
Whitney Pier.
Yeah. Mason Mead will be very happy that I just said that today. It's his birthday today too. So
Oh, hey, well,
Happy
if I
birthday,
could,
Mason.
if I could turn this around and get it edited in a few hours, we'll say happy belated birthday.
the hand pie thing, it's gas stations, they're warmers, they're everywhere. So in New Zealand and Australia, like it's just in
It's
your
a thing.
hand. And so for us, we had seen meat pies, and I know like Swanson
Right.
chicken pot pie. And it wasn't something that like quickly came on our radar. It wasn't something that like, yeah, that's the perfect idea. It started as something that became something very different. So when it started, it was, let's make a chicken and a beef pot pie, and we'll put it on the menu and people will love it. It's a comfort food. We're coming up into fall. Great. This was about 2.5 years ago. And then it kind of said, okay, well, how could we take this item and turn it into something that you and I could do, but we wouldn't need a lot of staff, and we could kind of keep something that would be manageable. And that's when Nathan sort of started messing around with puff pastry. And then he said, okay, what if we did chicken, beef, and then this one? So we do kind of have a throwback to Korea, because our curry pot pie is actually a Korean curry.
Oh, awesome.
So the inside of that pie, and when people come in, the curry for the first 3 months was always the ugly stepsister of the three. Because people would come in and be like, we have the chicken, the beef, and the curry. Oh, well, I'm not getting curry.
The face.
I'm not getting the curry.
Yeah.
And but what's great about it is when they try it, I got to get one of the curry. And so so the pies have almost become like part of our cafe, sort of 75% return.
Yeah.
So when people come in, Nathan has these really like surprise. It's like Jane Goodall relationships that he has with people here. He has a few. The demographic that we have gotten the most reception from and that have been the most easy to deal with are the older gentleman crowd here in Cape Breton.
Shout out older dudes.
Yeah, like
he's screaming at me.
there's a lot of older gentlemen who are widowed.
Okay.
There's a lot of older gentlemen who are single. There's a lot of older gentlemen who don't cook.
Yeah.
So they've made us a part of their week. And I mean, that I know who these dudes are. My dad is these dudes.
These are dudes.
These are dudes. My dad works at a garage. He's been at a garage my entire life. He used to hang over the cars with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth because it was safer then. You can't do it now because it's not as safe. You can only do it then.
The gas has changed.
Yeah, they've changed the inside of the cars so that they wouldn't blow up. And so when they come in, it's always almost a little bit of a surprise. I mean, you have a same-sex, interracial, intercultural couple going on in here.
Yeah.
And you walk in, hey guys, how's it going? And they're like, fine. But they're the easiest people to deal with because they don't care. They're
just simple, give me.
And then once they try the food and they come back, their confidence levels go up, which is awesome because they walk in, gentlemen.
Yeah, exactly. They feel more comfortable.
Chicken.
Yeah.
So there's this older gentleman that comes in once a week, and he only really deals with Nathan, and he walks in the door, and he's, as my nana would say, he's as deaf as a haddock, and he's like, you know, his modulation. I mean, he's really, really loud, and so he walks in. They don't even talk to each other. He just walks in. He looks at Nathan. He goes like this. He goes up. He gets 2 chicken pies. And out the door, and he loves it.
That's so cool.
And he comes in every single week, and that's what he needs.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to talk. He can't hear you.
Yeah.
He probably would love to have a conversation, but he's not going to frustrate himself or you by trying to do that. So that's like, those situations are examples of service where, I mean, we still give him the exact same service standard, just silently.
Which I think actually is a great testament to what you're doing, because give someone that challenge. Say, serve this guest, make them feel at home, make them feel like they're getting what they need from us, but you can't talk.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Basically.
That's amazing. So you've obviously built something with this guest where he feels comfortable enough that he can come in here, be himself, he can drop his guard. And I also think, like, kudos to you guys, because in a town like this, in a province like this, like, as progressive as we are not that progressive. So for you guys to be that kind of gaslight, if you will, to help people understand, like, we're just 2 dudes running a shop, trying to make awesome coffee and trying to make wicked pot pies,
and
give
not
us
kill
a shot
each other.
and not kill each other. And I think it's great that then you can see that visceral change in what would have been a like staunch hetero. Again, we're generalizing here, but, like, you know, a bunch of judgments about the world and other people and how they live their lives. And then you guys are able to, through what you do, say, like, hey guys, like, this is a safe place to come.
True.
We're just here doing what we do. And I think that is such
Well,
a
it goes back to
beautiful thing.
accessibility. It's making it accessible. Like, I don't expect every single person to come in here to be 100% on my side and, like, support.
No.
That's not my job.
And it's not real.
And, you know, and I grew up here in the 90s, and I know there are some very hardworking people here that are really trying to change minds and to educate people, which is great, which is really the main word there is educate.
Yeah.
And be patient with educating people because
For
it's
sure.
going to take a long time.
Yeah.
And I know some of my younger generational friends, they're very impatient, and you got to be patient. I grew up here. It is leaps and bounds better than what it was.
And it's been that way starting up for a long time. So
Absolutely.
you can't turn a ship that quickly.
No. And I mean, the fact that I can look and see same-sex couples on dates in public, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
When I was young, going to Halifax and seeing a rainbow flag was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, they have a rainbow flag here. Like, you walk in, you're like, I feel safe here.
I saw someone the other day in Halifax, across the street. He probably was in his early 20s, and this guy was just owning it. And I was in the car with my wife and our 2 kids, who are 2 and 7 months. But I said to my wife, I'm like, you go, dude. Like, do you, man? And I was so proud of Halifax. I was like, that's awesome that not only that he has the confidence to be himself, and we're getting off on a whole other tangent here, but let's just run with it, that he has the confidence to be himself, and our city and our province is comfortable enough to say, just do you, man. Just do you. Like, I think for me, being away for 15 years, it almost makes me a bit emotional, to be honest, to see that we are as stuck as we are in a lot of ways, in our old ways. There has been enough of the gaslight cafes facilitating conversation to let people know, like you said, to educate. Like, guys, our hearts beat, we have hands, we have feet, we're just like you. And then we're slowly seeing that integration into our population. And I think it's the coolest, awesomest, sexiest thing that we can do is be so open, because that for me is what Nova Scotia is. That for me is what hospitality is no judgments, do you, and come in, and we will take care of you as best we can.
Absolutely. And you should see the look on their face when they realize that a Korean made the chicken pot pie.
Actually, they're surprised.
I was
I
I was surprised when because you had shared via email that Nathan was from Korea.
Yeah.
I didn't realize at the time that he was the one who was making the food.
Yeah.
So when I saw on social media pot pie, I pictured literally your grandmother back there making the pot pie.
My
right?
mother, yeah.
His
Yeah.
mother.
My mother would love to be able
Yeah.
to be honest. She's
Yeah.
like, I can go do that.
Yeah.
No, you can't. It's been a very good vessel. Like the pot pie has really become, for us, it's a way to keep our scale a little bit smaller, just because it needs to be.
Yeah.
But it gives him an opportunity to try other things while still keeping like the trademark crust kind of situation that we've kept.
Right.
So the first thing you always hear in this place, especially, is if our clientele is so diverse. Like, you'll have a group of nanas at this table, then you've got the
guy from the garage.
the guy from the garage over here. You've got mother and son from Lewisburg, and then you have the queer couple that are on their first date and they met online.
Right.
So I mean, and literally, that is
recalling.
Yeah, I'm recalling a group
like
of
an actual
customers.
service. Yeah.
And the first thing you hear is, "Oh my God, the pastry." So you'll hear the compliments come to him for pastry, and then the filling is we've gotten creative, and this summer we tried to do like a staycation situation. We were going to be in Nova Scotia. A good friend of mine, who's becoming a friend of Nathan's, she has been amazing at promoting Nova Scotia. Jen Crawford was the winner of Master
Oh
Chef
yeah.
Canada.
yeah.
Jen and I went to
Jen.
university together.
Oh, cool. I would actually love to get Jen on the show sometime. Amazing. Maybe you can like slide me into her DMs.
She is incredible, and she's an incredible ally to the queer community. And she was somebody in my first year of university who was instantly part of my successes, because she was a safe place for anybody. And she was really, really hardcore on all these Nova Scotia things. So watching her on television and watching what she was doing, it was like, oh my God, I know what that tastes like. Oh my God, I can imagine what that smells like.
Right.
And she's so good at connecting with people with those stories. She just gets you with a story.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, well, when I was in, see, look at that story. If you can just like listen to her, you can imagine it. She made beep that they used to make
my
here.
God, beep.
So we did a beep iced tea based on a recipe that she did.
Oh, so cool.
And moon mist is her big.
Yes.
And the flavors of it are weird, but we had done a moon mist sugar shortbread with
Fun.
buttercream.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then we decided, let's keep going with this Nova Scotia thing. We got the beep iced tea. We got the moon mist cookies. So Nathan did a donair pot pie.
pie.
I know. I saw that. I have to
We have
to
them.
leave here with
We'll
one.
send you home with one.
Yeah.
So this Nova Scotia sort of donair pot pie, which is a new way to eat a donair.
Yeah.
And then a moon mist cookie, which was kind of reinventing that sort of thought of ice cream, but having a cookie situation, and then a Beep iced tea.
For those that don't know Beep, it is this orangey, yellowy. It's not from
25% real juice.
Yeah, I don't know from what
it
fruit.
was apricot,
like
prune, pineapple, and
apricot juice.
Orange.
Was it Baxter's or Scotsburn?
Scotsburn.
Shout out Scotsburn.
Yeah.
Hit us up for some advertising dollars.
Right?
Yeah.
I will bring Beep back on my own recipe. Just give me the marketing money.
That's amazing.
Just do that.
Let's quickly hit pause, reset the cameras, and I'm going to come back and ask you guys to finish a sentence for me that I've asked everyone on this trip to finish for me. So hold on, guys. We'll be right back.
Deal.
Okay, we are back. Welcome back. Quick bathroom break and a quick little off mic chat, and we are back. So before we hit pause, I had kind of preempted you guys that I was going to ask you to finish a sentence that I've asked everyone that I've sat down with on this trip so far on this podcast. And I'll actually start with Nathan. I think you can do this.
Okay.
I'm just intrigued to get your answer because you're not from here, because you're someone who's traveled from abroad and now calls us home. And for myself, being away for 15 years, I'm trying to re-understand this sentence as well and re-understand what that word is for people. So the sentence is that I need you to finish for me, and then Bryden will get you to do the same, is Cape Breton is blank.
It's not Cards Against Humanity. So
yeah, and this is
his
PG
only
show.
reference point with the fill in the blank. My friend's Mason birthday. That's where we play Cards Against Humanity. So it's not that kind of show.
So for you, what I'm looking for to kind of hold your hand a bit is, I want you to finish that sentence and let me know what Cape Breton is for you. Is it home? Is it beautiful? And I'm not trying to give you words here to describe it, but
Cape Breton is my second home.
Your second home.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's my second home actually. I can tell now. Because I've been here 5 years now. Now I can feel here it's like home.
That's awesome.
And he's never left in the 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
True.
We had and I'm sorry for the tangent, but based on when we were talking about painting everybody with the same brush and being very careful with that.
Yeah.
When this all sort of happened with coronavirus, and we had a regular customer, and she's amazing, but some of her friends not so much. And so she has this bad habit of bringing people here that are just problematic. When I say like this one, like they're like in their 80s probably.
Oh, okay.
Like 70 to 80. So she brought her friend here, was a little bit younger, probably 60. And she came in and she was going to get a chicken pot pie. And what are you going to get? We're going to get it go because it's cold, but we don't know. And this was very early on. Her friend was having a conniption fit next door, like just flipping out. And Nathan was waiting on them. And I was upstairs. I don't know what I was doing, but I was upstairs and I
having a
could
nap.
see, probably. But there's a window that looks out onto the parking lot. So I kind of had just looked out the window. And her friend was losing her mind,
outside.
like just screaming and going crazy. She couldn't believe that her friend brought her somewhere where one of those coronavirus people worked. And this was something that we dealt with. Now, here's the thing. I know how for so many people that's like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. And, you can't believe that happened. But at the time, we're sitting here and we're like, is this the direction that we're about to go in? We were beginning to panic because we thought everyone was going to think like that. We thought,
oh my God,
this was going to be for businesses everywhere. And I mean, in a town where international students have basically saved the day.
Yeah.
We're like, oh my God.
Actually, we have to worry about the situation too.
Yeah.
The first thing you think about is like, okay, are they going to stop coming here because of this? Like, what can we
do? That's brutal.
And it was so weird. But when he just said my second home, it's like, I want to know when the last time you traveled was, ma'am, because he hasn't left in 5 years.
Right,
so when he
been?
came here, when you go through permanent residency, it's a very invasive, very all-encompassing project. So you can't really leave without resetting the clock. So it made more sense for us to just stay here at the time. So we've been here for 5 years without a visit back to Korea. Someone's family is starting to get a little bit antsy.
Yeah,
but we're dealing with that now because when things reopen and we have a vaccine and we can travel, it's fine.
Yeah.
But, that moment was so like
I'm sorry. As a
Listen.
privileged white guy that grew up here, on behalf of this province, on behalf of this country, I am sorry that is something you had to deal with.
That's okay.
And anyone else that's listening that is not a white dude, like, you don't have to put up with that stuff, especially in our industry. Like,
And he's Korean, not Chinese.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, just because their skin looks different and their accent is different. Come on, guys! Like, it's
People
2020.
are cute though. You have to give people a little bit of credit because people come in sometimes, and they really try, and so they'll
That's nice.
and they'll wait. Nathan will wait on them. Like
Yeah.
if I'm going to the bank or something, and I'll say, "Oh, here, just be here for 20 minutes, and I'll be back." So, and of course, when I go in those 20 minutes, everything happens.
Of course.
the power goes out.
Deliveries, the phone's ringing. There's customers with questions.
A bus shows up with
Absolutely.
tourists.
It,
It's Murphy's
It has
Law.
almost
So
not-
always.
always. So
Seriously.
a customer came in yesterday or a couple of days ago, and she said ni hao, and Singhan's like,
Oh my god.
and now in
Now I
someone
know.
is very impatient because someone is very it's like okay, but she was trying to be like, she was being
Yeah,
like
being
uber
progressive,
polite.
yeah,
Yeah,
friendly,
she's like,
yeah.
oh my god, he's like, I don't speak Chinese.
Yeah.
She's like, well. He's like, well, it's Korean. And then if you try to teach somebody hello in Korean,
Which is
안녕하세요.
okay. Yeah, a little
it's
different.
too long.
Too long.
When I first got to Korea, remember
Seriously,
I told
just
you.
I want to teach Korean somebody like but too long, like but they
It's
can
true.
pronounce well.
Can you say it again for me?
안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
Oh, there you go. Oh,
안녕하세요.
yeah.
Annyeong.
We'll say
안녕.
안녕. 안녕. We are friends. Just 안녕.
Annyeong.
안녕.
More casual.
Mhm,
Less
yeah,
formal.
casual. Yeah.
And
Okay.
when they dropped the Cape Brettoner off in Korea, and I was very fortunate. There was a girl from Glace Bay on my flight, and she had been there before, and I was like, well, how do you say hello? And she told me, and I was like, what?
Say it again.
And I was like, what? And I was like, how do you say thank you? And then she told me thank you, and I'm like, I'm in trouble.
Yeah. What's thank you?
감사합니다.
Oh yeah,
That's the word.
hamsahamnida.
Yeah,
Yeah, I knew
감사합니다.
that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, 감사합니다.
Kamsahamnida, yeah.
No.
Yeah, I knew that one.
And
Or I
it's-
didn't know it, but yeah.
So Cape Breton is funny.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so many things. Like, so second home, but having people that on so many there are people here that love him. Like they just
Yes.
think he's a cartoon character. It's hilarious. And then there are still people that are
Still unsure.
Yes.
and even though they're unsure, he makes really good food, so they still come in here. So even though they're unsure of him, and you can see it, they'll still come here.
And that to me is what is so powerful about, and why I think you're seeing people double down. I say people, I mean businesses, entertainment platforms like Netflix, like the amount of food program that exists right now and food as a marketing tool is crazy. And kudos to you, one, for, biting your lip and just putting up with it, but then using your food as that conduit to create that relationship. I think food is such a powerful, I know it is, such a powerful platform to bring us globally together. And I
Just
think
make
it's-
you happy.
Yeah, it's
Just
fu-
make
it's
you people
food.
happy.
I just had an image of
Yeah.
him fighting with the older lady on the driveway about him making a better pie than her. And like, when you said you use your food, it's like, you can't make pot pie.
That's
see?"
amazing.
Like, that'd be awesome.
Can you finish that sentence for me? Cape Breton is?
Cape Breton is changing.
I like that.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think Cape Breton right now, we are starting to fulfill a lot of the things that we have said. So we're finally starting to do instead of say. And one of the things that I love and dislike about home is that we are incredible storytellers.
Yes.
However, sometimes stories need something more tangible. And looking at the NSCC being moved downtown, looking at the opportunities that's going to create. I mean, that creates opportunities for us.
Yeah.
Nathan's
For me
a
too.
teacher by
Yeah.
trade,
Oh, okay,
culinary
awesome.
instructor.
Oh, okay.
The downtown core for such a long time has not been neglected, but has just been we didn't know what to do.
Underutilized.
Absolutely. And
Right.
the having such an energy down there with a community college and, obviously just by default, more resources. When downtown has more resources, it'll have more energy. And with more energy comes more
Creativity
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
action and yeah.
So I can only think that that's a positive. And I think that speaks volumes of where we are now, because it's like, okay, finally, all right, enough with the stories. Now let's do it.
Yeah, like my partner always tells me, because I'm very much a head in the clouds kind of person. She's always says, "Don't tell me, show me."
Me.
Yeah.
His head, you two are hanging up upside. Yeah.
But you need that in a relationship,
Yes,
in
it is.
business,
Mhm.
in intimate
And then you need
relationships,
somebody
in
to pull you by
friendships.
the leg and say, okay, guess what?
Yeah, so you're the feet on the ground, and he's the head in the clouds,
Mhm.
and that allows for, like you were saying with Cape Breton, it's changing. You can't have change unless you have someone like a Nathan, who is a visionary, if you will, who looks at things through a different paradigm, who's coming from away, but now calling this second home and going like, hey guys, what if we did things this way? And then having just a bit of the population open to, like the word you use, Bryden, change. Like, who is open to just a little bit of change? And that's something that I'm finding on this trip with the chefs I sit down with, the operators I sit down with, the creators I sit down with, is they are all facilitating just a little bit every single day with what they're creating, that envelope being pushed just a little bit, and allowing for the population to get comfortable with that little bit of change.
Absolutely. I mean,
Having a donair in a pie
pie.
instead of wrapped in tinfoil in a pita, right?
Yeah.
which equally delicious.
I can't wait. I don't think I'm gonna even make it back to my hotel before that thing is finished.
It's, change is for such a long time, and I remember this expression, and I can't remember where, but people are afraid of things they don't understand. And I think that rings true even today. I remember being afraid of different food in Korea. I mean, when you see an octopus alive on the plate,
Yeah.
moving around after it's been chopped up, you're kind of like,
Shouldn't it not be moving?
I don't know about this, you guys. But change is progress. And I mean, change helps people. We as people need to progress as well. I mean, being a progressive person means accepting things and learning and moving forward.
And getting uncomfortable.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're not uncomfortable, then you're arrogant. I think if you
Yeah,
get too
fair.
comfortable in any situation, then no one can completely understand a situation, because nobody can completely know what someone else is feeling or thinking, and you can only really depend on what you can go on instinct,
Right.
and hope that your instincts are right. But I think in Cape Breton, that change and that progress, that change has always been a scary word here, because change means something different. It's like, oh, that's different.
Yeah.
Well, different is not wrong
Or bad.
or bad. Different is different.
Yeah.
And so those two words are often very confused. It's like grant and loan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, or when we were all, what was the word before COVID? You can defer.
Right. Oh yeah, yeah.
People got defer and delete confused.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
Defer does not mean it's gone.
There's different letters there.
Yeah. Change is progress, and progress is moving forward, and it's not leaving anybody behind. It's not forgetting anything.
No.
But it's taking those people with us. And I think that, I'm the person in my family who's the most obsessed with learning about my family. Like, my uncles who are older, whenever there's a family event, I park myself next to my oldest uncle,
you're
and I'm like,
asking
tell
questions.
me everything.
What was this
What
like?
happened?
How did you do that? Yeah.
I finally found out who actually burned down my grandmother's kitchen.
Ooh,
Yeah,
who was
In the
it?
70s, it was my Uncle Tommy in a white suit who had just come home from the Steel City. He fell asleep and he got blamed for it. It was actually my mother,
Ooh,
who
and
made French
your
fries
mother's
on the
name
stove.
is
Chandra.
Chandra. How dare you, Chandra?
She left a French fry pot on the stove with grease in it, which is how you cook French fries
Yeah.
safely.
Yeah.
And my uncle came home drunk and fell asleep in the kitchen, but her friends were impatient, so she left and got in the car and just left my uncle there in the kitchen because someone's there. My grandmother woke up and the entire kitchen was full of black smoke and soot.
Ooh, now
Yeah.
we know.
Now we know.
Now we know.
Now we know how to cook the French fries.
Yeah, exactly. I will share quickly before I ask you guys the last two questions here on the podcast. When you're speaking of change, Bryden, it reminds me of a quote that I don't have tattooed on my body, but I probably should, because it is so poignant for me. It's Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he said, "People wish to be settled, but only so much as we are unsettled is there any hope for them." So for me, it speaks to, like, we need to be uncomfortable. We need to chase that change. Otherwise, there's no hope for us. So I applaud you. I applaud you both for facilitating some of that change and trying new things, whether it be, a different way to make a pot pie, whether it be facilitating conversations about how we can live our lives different ways. It doesn't mean it's better or worse or anything. I think it's so great what you guys are doing here. And I'll say this more than once before I end this podcast. Having just met you both, I'm extremely proud of you both for what you're doing. So I applaud you, and I'm sure the listeners will as well. And I want you to keep doing what you're doing. So before I let you go, I do have 2 questions for you. And there's 2 of you, so you can kind of share the work, if you will. So this podcast is called the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast. So I have for you both the half a dozen have-tos. Stay with me here. So there's 2 of you. So I need from each of you 3 things that you've experienced in your life that you feel like our listeners have to experience. It can be a trip you've taken, a meal you've eaten, a book you've read, a piece of art you've stared at. You get where I'm going here.
Yep.
So
3 things that you have to do.
You feel like our listeners have to do. Nathan's pointing to Bryden to go first.
I'm going to be super pretentious.
No, do it.
I went on a trip a few years ago with a former colleague of mine, and we went to northern Laos in a little town called Hua Jai.
It just sounds sexy. Laos just sounds sexy. Yeah.
Laotian people. Like,
Laotian.
can you imagine if you were Laotian? And what are you? I'm Laotian, actually.
I feel like you should always wear gold if you're Laotian.
Absolutely, gold and red. And it was this project called the Gibbon Experience, which is a restoration and conservation project in northern Laos to protect the gibbon monkeys.
Okay.
So it's this breed of monkey that don't sound like monkeys. When they make their noise, they actually sing. So they sound like birds.
Amazing.
So you hear this sort of every morning you hear them singing. It was a tree house. So this company from Australia had built these tree houses
for
up
these
above
monkeys.
No, for people.
Oh, to like interact with these things.
To live in. So you stay in these tree houses. That's your hotel.
Oh.
So it's actually a zip line. You hike
zip
into this little village full
Yeah.
of these. There's a village of Hmong people who were original poachers of these monkeys, but now they work as tour guides to help protect them. So you hike in about 45 minutes, and you click into a zip line, and then you zip into your treehouse.
What a cool reception.
And so they bring you into your treehouse. You're right above the canopy, so you're quite high, and you just look out, and you're looking out over the Laos jungle, and you're hearing these monkeys sing.
Stunning.
So I was taking a shower, looking out over this, and I was like, so this is how rich people live. So when rich people live on the side of the mountain in California, and they look out, and it's raining, this is what they see. And for me, it was a have to, because it literally showed people who used to make so much money from killing these monkeys and using them, they decided to live with them.
They integrated with them.
And they found that people were more willing to support them and to help them when they were helping animals.
Right.
So for 3 nights, we stayed in this treehouse. You heard every sound. You had to sleep under a dark, heavy kind of like mosquito.
Mesh.
But a heavy, dark one.
Okay.
Because there are wild animals out and about.
That will just eat you.
Well, a squirrel stole my colleague's ring.
Oh my gosh.
He had this like really beautiful silver ring that he put on the sink.
Yeah.
But we're in a tree.
Right.
So a squirrel took it. So there's a really pimped out, like looking like squirrel.
I just picture him. He actually
out.
He probably listens to the show. So hey buddy, give that ring back.
Always just like Mr. T of squirrels. So have to for trip, definitely that one. It was like $300 for 3 days of
luxury.
And they brought in your meals. They zipped in with your meals every evening.
Oh my
Wine
God.
and
how bougie.
Oh, very much so. That was like the white person part of it. Like that was the glamping side of it, where you were like, well, I can't really get my own food. You have to bring me that.
Can you please send it to me on a cable?
And he would zip in and he'd set up, and it was really beautiful.
And don't look me in the eyes. Just leave it. Leave
Just
it there.
set it up and leave. The other half to would definitely be a book, and the book would be Tuesdays with Maury. And I know that that's probably not what people would expect for me to say, but it was a book that it helped me to figure out that people, no matter where they are, what they're doing, or where they go, you can always connect with those people. I always connect with my grandmother, because she's like this cool 12 kids. They were all within like a year of each other. But even up until she had like 6 strokes, she had diabetes, but she was still like cracking jokes.
Right.
And so she was always this person that was just always on, but on in a way that made her feel better, but other people around her. So no matter what you were going through, you could go in there and she would pick up on the mood and know how to make that mood sort of better. So I learned that from her, but I learned from that book how to actually think about those people in a way that I can use in real life.
Right.
Without being too spiritual. And food would have to be drinking ice cold acai beer in Tokyo and real authentic Tokyo beef or pork ramen.
Ramyun?
Yeah.
Which is?
The noodles, like ramen.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's like this cloudy broth, a boiled egg, a big piece of meat, and then like some vegetables, and then acai beer, because it's my favorite draft beer. And they don't sell it they don't sell it in Nova Scotia.
They have it in Vancouver, but it probably doesn't taste the same.
Oh, I'm sure it does, because Sapporo is pretty good here.
Yeah.
So, but those would be my
Man,
three.
you rhymed off those really well. Usually
Thanks.
people go back and forth, but you just like you took the mic and you dropped it, dude. Well done.
I think I'm very much a memory-based person.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
my
yeah.
memories are things that I take very, very seriously because I worked very, very hard to get them.
To make them, yeah.
And I'm very much a selfish traveler in that, like, we could go to a city together and I'm like, so do you want to like stay here?
Right.
And I'm going to like go do this. Well,
Right.
what are you going to do? Well, I don't know. But I love that spontaneity, and I love just kind of being there. So
Well, let's get a vaccine quickly
Oh, I
so
know,
we can
right?
get you back on the plane.
so he can go home.
Yeah, so you can go see your family.
Singing starving.
Yeah. Nathan, back to you. For what would be? You can do one item or you can do three. So it's up
Okay.
to you. Of have to things you experience in your life that you feel like our listeners have to do.
I want to say first things I would say Miss Bryden trip.
Yeah.
Is the experience trips is you can't buy. You have to see over the world what people doing, what different people doing, the situations. That's all I wanted to say. Trip.
Okay.
That's very important things.
Yeah.
Like you
get
can
out of your bubble.
get out of the bubbles.
Yeah.
When
Don't
you're
be-
allowed and it's
When
safe,
you're- yeah,
according
when-
to local
yes.
authorities.
See more overview.
Okay.
And second things I want to say to people, practice make perfect. Because I'm not a perfect person, but I'm trying to keep practice. Finally, you can do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So just like I want to say, don't give up. Just
Keep
practice.
going.
Keep
Yeah.
going. One day, you can do it.
Yeah.
Because your most of memories are going to be work.
Yeah, for
Right?
sure. Yeah.
And third things I can tell people, don't scare to changing.
Similar to Bryden was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Embrace it.
Yeah.
Embrace
Don't
change.
scare to changing. If you change, who care?
Yeah.
And if some people don't like it, change back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, totally it's rotation. So don't scare to change. Like some people scared to change one things. Like, but listen to me. Don't scare change.
You've heard it from Nathan.
Yeah.
Embrace the change.
Yeah.
You should be
people.
careful. You're going to have competition for a new podcast.
Yeah.
Life according to Nathan.
Life according to Nathan. I like it.
I'll probably out of the podcast.
You should have a podcast. I think you guys. I think everyone should have a podcast. Every business, at least. So the last question I have for you guys is the same kind of idea. So 3 from each of you of the half a dozen haven't yet. So kind of like a bucket list, if you will. So things that you have yet to experience in your life. A meal you haven't had, a trip you haven't taken, a Nova Scotia delicacy you haven't replicated here yet in the cafe. So what would be 3 things? If you can do 3, it can be 1 as well or 2. But 1 to 3 things that you haven't yet done.
That I want to do.
Yeah.
First is go to Australia, which is funny because he lived there, which is so not fair that he got to go before I did.
Yeah.
But Sydney, for some odd, weird, I don't know why reason, it's just on my number 1.
It speaks to you.
Every time I've traveled, I've become friends with Australians.
It's a great coffee culture there too.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
They have the best MasterChef franchise. I'm sorry, Canada. I know it's wonderful here. But if you watch MasterChef Australia, it is 63 hours of just intense
Oh wow.
investment.
Food.
Okay.
And you're like right there with them, and they're really supportive. You're crying. Oh, it's a really, really good one.
That's hilarious.
So definitely Sydney, Australia, particularly together because he had been there, so he knows
Yeah,
where
he
to
can
go.
show you some things.
have not done yet. I also want to travel like most of the United States, and I know that right now the politically but kind of outside of that, I think the United States has such a rich history in North America, and so much of our history is ingrained with American history. And I'm a huge Dan Brown fan.
Okay.
So I basically think that I'm going to go down there and it's going to be like, I'm going to find the new mystery, right? Like I'm going to find, look at that symbol up there, you guys. Right. So I'm definitely one of those weird people who just thinks that they're going to stumble upon the next big mystery of life.
Right.
I'm not. And definitely, I think, food-wise, I have always wanted to try the 5-course, very high-end food or cuisine that is cooked with cannabis oil.
Oh, okay.
So I've seen a couple of people do this, and I've seen it done, and it's exquisite food. Like you see it and you're like, oh my God. But it's all cooked with all the oils and the butters and things.
So is it CBD or is it
I
like
think it's
active?
I think it's
so people are getting high off
you're
this
wrecked
stuff.
at the end of the meal. Chelsea Handler she had a private chef come in and they did a whole thing with it.
Okay.
And then a few other chefs have replicated it, but they use it, I mean, they're not like smoking it or anything. They're cooking with it, but they're creating this amazing food. You don't taste it.
Right.
But from the first course into dessert, you're just
blitzed.
People.
Yeah.
Because you see people get sort of a little bit more blitz.
Yeah.
So then the conversations change. And watching the conversations change are hilarious. She's like, did you say something about a rat that was down there? She's like, oh my God, I thought you said the house was on fire. So it really, really good.
Interesting.
And he can cook that kind of food. So I'm just waiting until we find the machine to make the butter or the oil, which you can buy, but they're like $300 or something.
Come on, you guys are selling pies every day.
I know, but I don't know if I'm ready to invest $300
I have
into
to
a
make
butter
more pie then.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
true. Nathan, for you, the 3 haven't yet.
But you want to.
Yeah.
I want to actually looking around Canada.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Seymour,
so
Canada. Yeah.
I've been here in 5 years. On your
You've been to Halifax.
Yeah.
Oh, you need to get to Vancouver, and I say that only because of the dense Asian population, and there's a great representation of Korea, of China, like. All these places are so well represented, especially with cuisines.
True.
It'd be so nice for you to go there and see, like, does it stand up to Korean in Korea?
Sure.
Yeah.
So this I want to do, watching around, beautiful Canada. And I want to go to some school here.
Okay.
School.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To study?
Yeah,
Or
study.
to
Study.
study? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
For this everything. For now.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say again, thank you guys so much. This has been awesome. Sincerely awesome. What?
No, I have to.
No, go ahead.
no, I think I no.
Yeah,
okay.
go.
No,
go.
that's okay. That's okay. That's
No,
okay.
go.
I didn't know.
No, do it. Bryden, tell him to do it.
I don't know.
No, I just
Who's wrong, apparently.
I want to say thank you guys so much for having me into your space and for opening the doors to do this at 6 a.m. in the morning. I couldn't believe I think we were texting at this point. I was texting with Bryden, and I said, like, okay, well, what's early for you?
I know, but you can also tell when two people who work in hospitality deal with each other, because neither one of them really wants to kind of make that kind of like, well, why don't we do it at this time? Like nobody wants to make that suggest like, well, what works for you best? Well, I'm fine. What works best for you? I think I'm okay. I get up pretty early.
But most people would have been like, I don't know, 9, but I don't know.
I was like, get it done.
Yeah, man, that was awesome.
6 finished.
So thank you guys so much for doing that. And Nathan, thank you for joining us as well. Nathan was a bit apprehensive, as most people are, understandably. They don't know who I am. I'm just a guy that rocks up at 6 a.m. in the morning with microphones and cameras, and it can be a bit daunting, challenging, or uncomfortable. We talked about that a bit, to get on a mic and hear your own voice and do those things. So I'm very proud of you for doing it, and I appreciate you sharing your point of view, because it matters, and we need to hear more of conversation from people like you who are new to our province, but very much make up the fabric of our community. So thank you for being part of that and giving a voice to those people, and for you guys giving a voice as well to your community, which is our community, which is all of our community. So I'm proud of you guys. I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate you guys for tuning in as you do week after week. Nice little segue. Before I let you go officially, if people want to reach out, they want to support you, they want to find out what's going on, they want to find out more about the pies, more about the coffee, how best they do that?
You just send me money.
A blank check.
A blank check just signed. Mombour. Yeah, you can actually check us out on social. We're very active on social media.
Yeah, you guys-
it has
yeah.
become our sort of reach out during all of this craziness because it seems like the one constant.
Yeah.
So fortunately, so many platforms have improved and have gotten easier and better. So we're all very connected on that. So Facebook, Gaslight Cafe, LB, which stands for Lewisburg, which is where we originated this. Or Instagram is the Gaslight Cafe LB as well. So we keep it simple and easy to find. Gaslight Cafe, you should see us and we should pop up.
Yeah.
Black and white photos are not us. They're the 1972 underground
Oh,
music.
okay. Oh, cool.
Bob Dylan, poetry readings. I think Gaslight has, like, in every city has been this sort of cultural underground
Right.
snaps instead of
Oh,
claps
okay.
sort of.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole history of it. There's like a bunch of like vintage photographs, like with like Gaslight on in the background. I feel like I should print them off and make a collage.
Yeah, maybe.
Probably should.
Probably
Yeah.
get sued.
Probably. And they would come by when you're not here.
Oh,
They-
absolutely.
They deal with Nathan.
He's here, and Bob Dylan walks in the door. Why is my picture up on the wall? Hello,
I don't
Mr.
know-
Dylan.
I don't know who he was.
Yeah, exactly. He's just some old guy with curly
old guy.
hair.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Literally,
Very
that's-
monotone, but
Seriously, that's always happening.
Masks have not made our life easier.
if you guys are in the Atlantic bubble right now and listening to this, I encourage you, please come by the Gaslight Cafe, say hi to Bryden, say hi to Nathan, buy a copious amount of pies, buy an unreal amount of caffeine, and then tell your friends about it and tell them to come as well. And if you, go ahead.
No.
I was going to say, and if you aren't in the Atlantic bubble when this thing bursts and it's safe, come by, visit Cape Breton, and visit these guys at the Gaslight Cafe. That is Nathan. That is Bryden. I am Brad. This is the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast. Again, I appreciate you guys listening, tuning in, downloading, subscribing more than you know. If it wasn't for you, this show wouldn't exist. And you know what to do until next time, guys. Be good and do good. We did it, guys. Done.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You crushed it. Nathan, you did so well. You should have a podcast. Nathan the Pie Guy.